and
Awesome.
we're live.
Sounds good. So thanks guys for coming to learn a little bit more about nutrition or just get a reminder of some things that you might already know. Um, Today we will talk about food logging, we'll talk about calories, macronutrients, micronutrients, tracking macros, nutrition labels, and then probably some tips and tricks of just whatever you're trying to implement, either counting calories or tracking macros into your routine, things that you can do. So there's more than one way to log your food. Some of the most common tracking methods are like a written food journal. So you can just write down what you're eating and estimate or weigh the amounts that you're eating. A photo journal where you take pictures of everything that you eat and you send that to your coach. An app like MyFitnessPal, Chronometer, RP Strength, anything else. I don't know if Shalase, you know of any other methods that
Macros First is another one.
macros first. Okay.
Yeah, there's so many different ways.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So depending on your goals and how accurate you want to be, you would use one of those methods. But like, I do want to talk about why you would want to log your food. First reason could just be curiosity. Like most people were not taught about nutrition outside of like the food pyramid, which means that most people don't actually know what they're putting in their bodies and how much of it they're getting and how much of it they even need. So just figuring out what it is that you're eating puts you steps ahead of probably the majority of your peers. So wanting to track your food, I know that there's a lot of talk of it being controlling or limiting, or like, you know, you don't have freedom anymore, but really it gives you freedom because you have knowledge to say what is going in your body and how much of it you're going to put in, and you're making those decisions, educated decisions, instead of just walking blindly into a grocery store and hoping for the best. You want to add anything, Shalise?
Actually, yeah. I was just having a
Please do.
conversation with somebody. They were going away on a trip, and I was telling them, I said, well, now you have this general idea. You can eyeball things now because you know what it should look like. And I think, like you had mentioned, like people talk about how it's disordered to track your food or whatever. And
Mhm.
it's so enlightening. I think it's so, like you said, there's a lot of freedom to it too, because you start to learn how many calories are in things, and that things that look healthy maybe aren't, or, you know, like a little fig bar really isn't the small amount of calories you think it is, or, you know, serving sizes, like it's talking about 1 versus 2, you know, in the package and what that looks like. So I like learning to read nutrition labels and tracking your food and understanding the amount of calories that are in food is, I think, a huge, huge learning tool, and helps you prepare for when you do go out and eat. You have a general idea. Sometimes that's good and sometimes that's bad, because then you're like, I know how much that is, and I know that's not good for me. But I mean, it teaches you a lot. It's very enlightening when you are out on your own and you don't have, you know, this menu to follow or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Cool. I think that like, so that's the curiosity piece, gaining knowledge, being able to use that and run with it, and maybe not depend on, like, for example, if you're starting to work with a coach and in the beginning you're asking all those questions of, you know, what should I be getting? Then, like you mentioned, you can start to make those choices on your own and then just report back to your coach and get the high five of like, hey, good job. way to way to take ownership of this new skill that you have. So those are huge benefits of tracking your food. Of course, counting calories. I think that's one of the first things that people try maybe before they have a coach. So I'm sure most of you have heard calories in, calories out. Um, there are mixed feelings on this. It is a pretty simplified view. And I think that it can work in extreme cases where you either have a lot of weight to lose, or you have a lot of weight to gain. um, but it has a tendency to turn into, like, at least in the fat loss realm, it has a tendency to turn into eating less and exercising more, which isn't always the answer. Um, so I did want to talk about what a calorie is, in case it's been a while since you may have been in like a physics class. Is that where this is covered? I don't know. But a calorie is a unit of energy. So our food calories that we see on nutrition labels, they are kilocalories. So KCAL is that abbreviation. And it measures the amount of energy that's required to raise 1 liter, which is also a kilogram, of water by 1 degree Celsius. So there's your science for the day. And to to balance out the science, a fun fact, and no, I did not come up with this. I actually read it online, but the calorie content of a donut is basically the same amount of energy that's in a stick of dynamite. So when you are eating a donut, you are consuming the same amount of energy that would explode from a dynamite stick, which is pretty crazy. But I think that's a cool visual, not the blowing up, but the but the idea of like, wow, there is so much contained within this piece of food. Like thinking of food as energy and as fuel instead of maybe some of the other things you might associate it with, whether those are positive or negative. So yeah, donut, dynamite. I think we need dynamite donuts. I might need to start a donut shop called Dynamite Donuts. But they're macro balanced donuts. They have like protein powder in them and stuff. Anyway. So for counting calories, typically I think people will rely on nutrition labels. So before we get into nutrition labels and how to read them and what you should be looking for, I do want to tell you that the FDA allows for like a 20% error on nutrition labels. So putting numbers to that, if something was labeled as 100 calories, it could be between 80 and 120. So that applies to both the calories and the like vitamins and minerals within the food. So when you're choosing whole foods, chances are the nutrition labels and the like logging entries you're going to find for those will be accurate, and you can check that with your coach. So there's like less risk for error in that situation. But for processed foods, that's where you really need to be careful. And processed foods are really where you're looking at the nutrition labels anyways. Like we're not looking at the nutrition label of the eggs to see if we're going to buy the eggs. Like we're going to buy the eggs and then eat them and then log the nutrition. We know that they are good and we're going to eat them. So is there anything you want to say about the error on nutrition labels, Julius?
No, you kind of covered it. But if you guys know, and I don't know if you're going to cover this, Taylor, so sorry if I'm kind of jumping ahead, but so protein, carbs, and fats all account for a certain amount of calories, obviously. So fats have, were you going to say this?
Well, yeah, we're going to talk about it right now, actually.
Okay. So know that if you know how to do that, you know how to add those up and what that is, then you can often tell that the nutrition labels are off on processed foods, especially when they say they're high in fiber, because then they take out the carbs because it has fiber in it. So you'll notice that sometimes it doesn't add up appropriately where it says the amount of calories in the serving size. So yeah, like Taylor said, 20 to 30% off most of the time with nutrition labels. So be careful.
Crazy.
Yeah, that's huge. At the end of the day, like if you count up the amount of calorie that is per day, like however many times you're having it during a week, that can add up to, 200, 300, 400 calories extra that you're eating on top of things because of the processed foods.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So just going straight in. So from counting calories, you're limited with what you can do. You can use the calories that you know are in whole foods and then use nutrition labels for processed foods, but even that might have a variance where it could slow down your progress. So tracking macros is a really good way to essentially just count calories on expert mode. Um, So carbs, fat, and protein are the three macronutrients. And then if you happen to drink alcohol, you can consider alcohol like a fourth, um, just because it has a different calorie content. So each macronutrient has a caloric value that's accepted as the average number of calories per gram for that macronutrient. So for 1 gram of protein, it's 4 calories. For 1 gram of carbs, it is also 4 calories. 1 gram of fat is 9 calories. And then for alcohol, I think it's 7 calories per gram. Is that accurate? I think so, yeah. So, and honestly, like calculating the number of grams of alcohol in a beverage is a little bit more complicated than you might think. So if you're gonna drink and you're gonna be tracking it, definitely think about it before you go out, know what you're gonna order, because if you order something, you'd need like a calculator and a piece of paper and stuff. Um, so if you are tracking macros, you're also tracking your calories. So if you know how many grams of carbs, fat, protein you're getting each day, you can calculate the calories from that. So that's what Shalise was talking about, where you might see that the calorie count on a nutrition label is not accurate based on the carbs, fat, and protein reported in that food. Um, so I don't know if I mean, I don't personally, I don't have any clients that are just tracking calories. I don't know if Shalise, you have any, or if they're all macros or meal plan. Yeah. Eventually, you know, it's best to have all clients get to a point where you are tracking your macros, whether that's by following a meal plan or doing it yourself. But tracking macros is superior just because even though they all contain a certain number of calories, and we talked about calories are just energy, our bodies break down and use each macronutrient in different ways. So it's not like 1 calorie from protein is the same as 1 calorie from carbs. The calorie itself is the same, but the way that we get to that point is different. So just tracking macros allows you to like optimize the types of nutrients that we're providing to your body for your specific goals. Do you want to say anything about that, Shalise, before we talk about like what? Okay.
Nope.
So for protein, I'm sure you guys have heard it's good for building and maintaining muscle mass. So we really like protein. It's got the highest thermic effect of all of the macros, which just means that it takes the most energy to break down. So when you eat it, you're going to be using energy basically to process it within your body, and then you can actually use the protein. And it's also the most satiating to a certain point. Don't just like only eat protein. You will not feel good and your gut will not feel good either. um, but to a certain degree, like making sure you get enough protein will keep you full throughout the day. It'll keep you satiated. And I honestly, I found that it just keeps my energy more stable. I don't know of any like scientific reason for that, but definitely if I don't have meals with protein in it, I feel it. Um, Carbs are going to be your main source of energy as well as your source of fiber. And then fats are essential for your brains, just one brain, hopefully, for your brain, your hormones, cell health in general. And it's also needed in order to absorb any fat soluble vitamins. So very, very, very important. We can't just cut out fats, especially for women. We need to keep a healthy amount of fat in our diets. So villainizing either, well, really any of the macronutrients, but primarily either fats or carbs, not good. We need a balance.
Yeah, and going along with that, so if you're taking vitamin D is a fat soluble vitamin, and you need to be taking that with fats. So make sure that, like, if you're taking that first thing in the morning, which you studies show that you probably should because it's the sunshine vitamin, make sure that there's some source of fat with your breakfast in the morning. So anybody who's actually getting like a meal plan from me, you'll always notice that that breakfast is loaded with carbs, fats, and protein. So the fats aren't limited. Like usually it's a higher fat meal than my other ones throughout the day. And that's for a reason, because you should be taking vitamin D with it too. And it's just in the mornings, it's just a good start to break your fast with all three macronutrients.
Mhm. So when you guys are either cooking with whole foods or you're looking at a nutrition label or you are following your meal plan, I'd encourage you guys to get curious about what category your food falls into. So I really like the visual of a triple Venn diagram, which I have a pen. One moment. There we go. Okay. So just so that we have a visual here, it's kind of fun. Okay. Carbs, fats, proteins. You know, if I were fancy, I would like do this on the computer, but I'm not going to. Is that backwards or can you read it?
Nope, it's good.
Okay, cool. So with a triple Venn diagram, protein, something like egg whites, is just going to go in the protein. But then a whole egg would go in protein and fats. So it would go in like this little hole here. Something like you could say peanut butter would go in the middle technically because it's got like all three, but really it's more of like carbs and fat. What's would you say milk? I feel like milk is pretty balanced between the three.
That's not
Like
a
a
bad, yeah,
2%?
yeah, that's not a bad option because yeah,
Maybe like a 2% milk would go right in the center. So you're getting all three macros. Carbs, you know, you get like um rice would be one that's just right here, but maybe one with like protein as well would be something like lentils or like beans.
yeah.
But anyway, so thinking about where on this triple Venn diagram your food falls will give you a lot of freedom. And it is a scale, right? Like kind of what I was saying with the peanut butter. Like technically it has all three, but there's two that are primary and one that is a secondary, like a third. So even if you like wanted to look at your meal plan and use it as a fun activity, fun. It's fun, okay? I'm like a teacher trying to be like, you love science. But
Nerding
yeah,
out on
putting
nutrition labels right now.
what'd you say?
You're totally nerding out on nutrition labels right now.
Oh,
On nutrition,
yeah, yeah. But looking at your meal plan and saying like, oh, you know, what category does this fall into? What am I eating right now? What value, what foods in this meal are giving me each macronutrient, which are giving me a combination. So maybe we'll use that later. Who knows? But just wanted to bring that up. I love a good Venn diagram. Um, so let's see. With the Venn diagram, I do want to make sure that we say this, and like if this was written down, it would be in all caps, bold, bright red, just the biggest poster you've ever seen. Healthy, non-processed foods don't always meet your macros, and the quantity of healthy foods still does matter. I want to cry about it. Like I had a friend one time who was like, "Yeah, I've been eating an avocado a day," and I'm like, "Dude, that's a lot. Like, that's a lot of fat." I'm so happy about your avocado eating because it's like it's really good for you, but maybe not in that quantity, um,
and this is
depending
why
on your goals.
like on my social media posts when I post stuff for myself or the team or whatever, I always say the right macros for you, the right macros for what your lifestyle is, because or nutrient dense with the right combination of macros, because just because you're eating healthy doesn't mean it's necessarily good for what you're doing. And most often than not, everybody that comes to me, and Taylor, I'm sure you could say the same thing, protein isn't eaten enough. That's the one that we have to increase most often, and fats are usually the ones we have to decrease most often because everybody is eating healthy stuff like avocados and thinking that it's fine, and it's not necessarily. Yes, it's fine. Yes, you can have avocados, but just like anything else, moderation and the right combination of macros.
Mhm. I would be willing to put money on the fact that like anything that is labeled as a superfood is primarily fats. Even, okay, get this, and if you didn't know this, you should. Acai, acai berries, you would think like, oh my gosh, it's a berry, it's a carb, it's great. Blueberries, right? No, it's mainly a fat. got a lot of fat in it. And so, I mean, a lot of like acai bowls that you would order have either additional sugar added or other things, but like the berry puree itself is like very like waxy almost because of the fats in it, and it's earthy. And so it's kind of a shame that they usually put sugar in the prepackaged ones, but if you do ever just get like raw acai, it is like a totally different experience than the granola bowl you picture when you think of it. So, okay, I'm off track. I got thinking about smoothies. Um, okay, so with that, I think kind of the last thing I wanted to talk about before we go into like tips and tricks, is just reading nutrition labels. So I have a few rules or like guidelines that I will tell people about. So, um, for the protein fat rule, usually it's like a 2-to-1 ratio. So you want to have at least double the amount of protein as fat if you want to consider it a protein source. And that just allows you to get make sure that your protein sources are not, you're not getting more calories from fat than you are from protein. So protein is 4 calories per gram. Fat is 9 calories per gram. So if we say double the protein and just have 1 of the fat, then you make sure that your calories are at least equal coming from protein and fat for that food. So then in that way, you could consider it a protein source that is like moderate fat at least. And then the lower the fat gets and the higher the protein, the more of a true protein source it is. Like egg whites, chicken breast, 99.1. That's not going to have a ton of fat in it. But things like salmon, like unless it's wild caught salmon, your farm caught salmon is not going to hit the 2-to-1 protein and fat ratio. So
I joked about this one time because one of my clients was like picking Atlantic salmon versus sockeye salmon, and we were talking about the different fats that are in each one of those. So she goes, "What address of salmon am I supposed to have again?" So I thought that was the funniest thing, like thinking of where it came from. But yeah, so I mean, there are different types of salmon that are fattier than others. So that's why a lot of times, again, if I am writing a meal plan, I'm very specific about what type of salmon, so that they're looking for that within the store.
yeah. Another rule, Shalise, you mentioned this, but I wrote, don't subtract fiber from your carb count.
No.
You might read like a New York Times article that says like, well, you don't absorb the fiber, so it doesn't count.
Still a calorie.
It still matters. It's really good for you though, so definitely prioritize it, but you don't get like extra calories because of it. Sorry. Let's see. I wrote down keto. It probably is not going to be the right thing for women. I think that's my answer. Shalise, what do you think?
I agree. And if we are going that route, there's a specific reason for it. And it's a very phased, like you don't stay there forever. Maybe 4 to 6 weeks and then bounce out. But yeah, it's not my favorite for females unless it's a very rare case.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say the same about, and I know you're again jumping ahead, but sorry, but intermittent fasting, same.
Yeah. Agreed. Let's see. Those were all the ones that I wrote down. So if you have any others, Joyce.
As far as what?
Like when you're looking at nutrition labels, things to look for, or you could even say like product labels, so like keto or something like that.
Yeah. So the other thing I would look at is ingredients. So I don't know if you guys know this, but when you're reading a nutrition label, the first ingredient that's listed on there is what the majority of that item is. So if it says cane sugar as the first ingredient, then you know that most of what you're getting out of that is sugar. So look at your ingredients list, because that will give you a ton of information about what you're eating. So I often tell people this: just as an example, like nut butters. When I'm looking at nut butters, you try to go with one that says peanuts. That's the only ingredient. Almonds. That's the only ingredient. And you don't want to see like soybean oil or whatever other oil they put with that. So reading, knowing, and paying attention to the ingredients list is also important too.
Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure at one point I made a post on the Facebook page saying like this cereal specifically says like sweetened with honey, and sugar is listed before honey in the ingredients. And I'm like, what? Like, guys, you're lying to us and we know it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Let's see. For tracking tips and tricks. So some things that I will do is for like meats, definitely make sure that you are getting the correct type of meat, the correct fat percentage or cut. And also log whether or not you are eating the visible fat or cutting it off. So like we had this discussion, I think, Shalais, about chicken thighs. You and Gina were like, we eat the fat. I personally cut it off. So when I'm logging it, I just think it's yucky. So when I'm logging it, I make sure to honestly, I use ChatGPT and then just compare that to make sure it's like within a certain range that I'm comfortable with, or I'll average out a couple of entries that I find. Um, and I'll say like if you like grill chicken thighs and cut off any visible fat, what is the approximate value of fat that you would get versus eating it? And that way you can make sure that uh you're not either over or under logging your fat. Same thing with ground meats. If you keep the fat in the percentage, like if you're doing 85-15 and you keep the fat in there, that will be very different than if you drain the fat. So making sure that what you're logging is reflecting what you're doing in real life, because the entries in whatever app you're using are going to be different based on those variables, and it might not say it in there, so you might want to create your own. So I don't know if Shalais, like if you have a chart that you either use or give your clients to say like, hey, if you're doing this, like use this amount and like add it in. But that's kind of a big conversation because everybody kind of cooks and eats meat differently. So maybe that's something we can create, is just a chart that people can use, to say like, if you are draining the fat out of the meat, this is your estimate. If you're not, this is what you should use or look for, right? If they don't want to create their own entry in MyFitnessPal, so, or whatever logging app.
And sorry if this is where you're headed next at some point, but when you are tracking, go with grams. Don't measure a cup, don't measure a tablespoon, all of that, go with grams. Sometimes, well, with protein, I do ounces. I know, Taylor, you don't. I know you do grams with protein as well, but protein, I'll go with ounces because I don't care if I'm over a little bit on protein. That's not a big deal to me, but everything else should be measured in grams.
Mm-hmm. Most of the time, nutrition labels will have the grams in parentheses, even if it's like listed in ounces somewhere else. But you can also just estimate, like if it only has it in ounces for some reason, you can just use the calculation for converting ounces to grams, and it's fine.
Or just Chat GPT that shit too.
Yeah, that's actually a good way to use ChatGPT for sure. You know what I just realized? I need to turn on my light because it's gonna get dark in here.
Yeah, same.
Is this gonna be horrible? No, okay, it doesn't look bad. Okay, good. Let's see. Tracking cooked versus uncooked items. That's another thing to keep in mind. So things that absorb water when cooking, like rice and pasta. Very important to know that you're weighing, you're like logging the cooked amount as you weigh it. Or if you happened to weigh it uncooked and then cook it, and then you're just going to eat that, you have your uncooked amount, but just know which one you're doing, because it can like double or triple the weight. So if you have any questions on your meal plan about whether a food is cooked or uncooked, definitely ask that question. Get clarification. I think on my meal plans, I will specifically say raw or uncooked if that's the case. I don't do that for like vegetables. It's not important, but for things like meat or carb sources or whatever, um, I will put raw if it needs to be raw. Like oats, you'll weigh before you put the water in, but pasta, it just depends. If you're making like a big bowl of pasta for like your whole family and you need to weigh the cooked amount, then you'd want to measure the cooked. And a lot of nutrition labels will be for the raw ingredient that you are purchasing. So like if you sometimes they sell like quinoa, for example, in a package and it's already cooked, and it's like vacuum sealed, and then you just warm it up. That would be a cooked quinoa versus if you bought quinoa like the raw grain and then you looked at the nutrition label, it'd be totally different. So that is that. Let's see. Making your own estimated recipes. This is something that I encourage a lot of my clients to do when they are like not competitors, or if they're in an off season and they're responsible with their cooking practices. Um, you can use either MyFitnessPal. I know MyFitnessPal does it. I'm sure the other apps do it, but you can create your own recipes and then take the like total weight of that recipe. For example, if I'm making chili, I can put in, my like 2 pounds of meat, a can of beans, can of tomatoes, whatever else I put in there, spices, and then weigh the total amount of the chili, enter that as the number of servings when you create the recipe. And then when you actually go to put the food in your bowl, the number of grams that you get will be like one serving. 1 gram would be one serving. So it just like calculates what's in that portion. Yes, it's an estimate because every scoop is not going to be exactly the same, but the idea is that you won't just grab like all of the beans or all of the meat. You'll get a mixture of it. So that's one thing that you can do. And there are plenty of like negligible ingredients that you can add to add flavor without adding a significant amount of calories. So like when I make chili, I don't log that I put 2 tablespoons of paprika or whatever. I don't log that I put like um I think like Worcestershire, I put like a tablespoon of Worcestershire in there. I don't log that. I log like the meat, the beans, the broth, the stuff that actually has some sort of substance to it. And that way it's not this huge uh, lift to get your own recipe into your food logger. And you can do it quickly. But do you have any other tracking tips, Shalise?
Not off the top of my head. If you are using MyFitnessPal, I would say always look for the ones that have the green check mark. Because just like most of my clients will know this, if they are using it, it's just like Wikipedia that, like Taylor said, you could go in and you can enter your own thing. Well, some people, like I remember looking one time at like a Pop-Tart and the calories were 40 grams of calories. I was like, that's not right. So again, this is where like logging your food and learning nutrition a little bit and paying attention to that kind of stuff will help you pick the right entries too. You're like, yeah, that actually makes sense that it might be around this. So the green check marks on MyFitnessPal just says that it has been verified by MyFitnessPal. So they're close enough. They're good estimates.
Mm-hmm. Anytime I scan a barcode for a food, I check it just because I get burned all the time. So do that as well. Don't just trust the scan. I wish we could, but we can't. Okay. Let's see. Last thing, and then we'll open it up to see if you guys have any questions or want to share anything. But I wanted to talk about like when life happens, how to prioritize your macros so that you can still be as close to like on track as possible. Instead of just like winging it or saying like, screw it, I'm off my macros today. Please don't do that. So of course, protein is going to be your most important macronutrient. Make sure you hit your protein goal first. Keep your muscle mass. It will like keep building muscle or maintain the muscle that you do have, and keep your fullness in check. It'll help with maybe some cravings that you may have gotten if you get like ravenous towards the end of the day because you haven't eaten. Um, and then after you hit your protein, technically carbs and fats are interchangeable at this point. But I do tell my clients to prioritize fiber next. You guys should all have a fiber goal. So that means carbs. So choose your carbs wisely. Like if, for example, you are really on an if it fits your macro goal to like eat an In-N-Out burger tonight for some reason, like me, because I literally have an In-N-Out blanket right now. Um, then you're gonna have to make space for a lot of a lot of fat. So pick your carbs wisely. High fiber carbs, Google it and find some. There are some carb sources that have like basically a gram of fiber per gram of carbs. So work those in somehow. Shout out chia seeds. Chia pudding is super good. Highly recommend. But hit your fiber after your protein, and then after that, just stay within your calorie limit with whatever combination of fat and carbs that you get. So that way you've ensured that like you've got your protein, so you're covered there. You are getting your fiber, so your digestion is going to be good, and you're within your calorie limit, so you're not going under or over on that. So you're still going in the right direction. Definitely don't do this every day, but this is for the days where you're like, oof, something went wrong, or you want to fit in a meal that might not be part of your plan and you want to work around it in a smart way. So that's all I have for you guys. So we can, if anyone has any questions or wants to unmute, um, feel free. We can chat for a bit. We got like 15 minutes. Or if like there's any questions about anything else too. It doesn't just have to be about nutrition.
I will say this about, again, tracking and how enlightening it can be. We had this discussion on one of our lives, I think a few weeks ago, about the Chick-fil-A sauce that everybody loves and how delicious it is. If you look at what 2 tablespoons of Chick-fil-A sauce is fat-wise, there's a reason it tastes so good because there's a shit ton of fat in there. And then looking at like most of my clients who are in a fat loss phase or whatever, we're watching our calories right now. Like that's going to account for half your half your fat calories or half your fat grams. Cause I think it's like 25 grams for 2 tablespoons.
Can you see?
It's blurry. Total fat is
14 grams.
14 grams. And that's
a
just
lot.
two tablespoons, right? Is that
Yeah.
Yeah. So be careful because little sneaky things like that, the condiments and stuff, that's why I asked about condiments that you're choosing and eating, because those things add up super, super quick. And it doesn't seem like a lot, but I mean, there's a reason they taste so good.
160 calories for 2 tablespoons.
Yeah. So think about what your meals are. I mean, most meals, looking at who I have online right now, your meals are probably around 350 to 450 calories or 500, and there's 100 calories right there just in that 2 tablespoons.
You can dip so many carrots into your Chick-fil-A sauce if you want.
Yeah. So it's like learning to track your food, and when you do track your food and you're scanning this shit and you're like, oh my God, that's how much it is. Like, yeah, it teaches you a lot.
That's really funny.
Which is both a blessing and a curse.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't really go to Cheesecake Factory anymore.
Your whole meal is your calorie allotment for the day.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see. Trying to think if there's anything else.
Well, I'll say that too. So if you guys are going out to eat, so let's talk about that too. A lot of the chain restaurants, you can go online and look at their nutrition labels too. So you know exactly what you're eating. So if you're, want to prepare ahead, hey, we're going to Cheesecake Factory tonight, and this is what I'm going to go order. Most of the time, the nutrition labels, again, they're wrong, but at least you're getting a good estimate of what those foods are. So you can kind of plan ahead. So like I remember one time looking at just like Brussels sprouts, like the honey sriracha Brussels sprouts at BJ's. There's so much fat in those too. I was like, oh my God, here I thought, vegetables, it's honey. So of course I expected a lot of carbs, but the fats that go along with it too was quite high. So planning for that. So like, okay, if that's what you want, great. But just maybe earlier in the day, take some fats out so that you're not going as much over as you would be eating your normal meals and then having that later. So it is a good way to plan ahead.
Mhm. That's like one of my favorite things to do is figure out what I'm gonna eat at a restaurant if I'm going somewhere. And like sometimes
To do, Taylor. We need to add some
it's
excitement to your life.
I mean, like in the realm of food tracking, I like other things. But it's fun to do it at a restaurant because then you do have to really think like, man, what do I want to eat tonight? Because it's sometimes the selections are slim. Like they have oh my gosh, they always call it something dumb like skinny-licious or like healthful or like light under 500 calorie meals. And it's like meals should probably be no more than like 750 calories for the majority of people. And 750 is like high, including people who are, if you're very, very active.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. I say people, I mean women. Oh, let's see. Would you chat about fasted cardio? I find it difficult to want to eat at 5 a.m. when I go for a run. I hear a lot of opinions about it, especially for women. I'll let you take this one, Joyce.
So fasted cardio, the cardio aspect is fine. Um, if you're doing it fasted, that's totally okay because most of the time you probably have enough carbs and stuff left over from the night before, your meals from the night before. Where I have a harder time with this is if you're fasted training because your muscles need that. So fasted cardio, especially if it's steady state cardio, because steady state cardio is going to go after fats first. So for energy. Um, so fasted cardio is fine. You're not needing as much. Where fasted training, you want to be as fueled as possible for that to help muscle protein synthesis. So for training, that would be a totally different answer. I would ask that you get some sort of carb in there, even if it's like half a protein shake with like a banana on the way, or, just something that's going to digest real quick. Something like that, like EAAs at that point. I don't know if you guys saw my stuff today. I was talking about supplements and how they're not important, which ones aren't that important, but BCAA is not a big deal, but EAAs if you're in a fasted state. So if you're drinking EAAs with your cardio, also great. And then having something like that prior to your training as well, or while you're training, is a good source too. So when it comes to fasted cardio, not so much a big deal as long as you're not going like, I'm hoping you're not doing like an hour's worth of cardio either. Like I'm hoping it's a reasonable amount of cardio. So fasted cardio is fine. Fasted training, I would prefer your field for that. And there's a lot of carb sources out there too, like intra-workout carbs, like Carboline, glycofeed, the stuff like that you can actually drink while you're training. So if you're training, you can have stuff like that during your training.
Cool. Oh no, well, I don't see any other questions just yet. So,
You're welcome, Hannah.
all right. Do you want to stay on, Joyce, or should we we end?
No, we can shut it down.
Cool.
Yeah.
That sounds good.
And
Well,
it's just us.
bye.
Just like that.
Cool.